Today is a day of challenges. I do the best of 10 video that is making the rounds on YouTube at this present moment in time, where film YouTubers like myself pick their favorite film from a specific list of 10 genres. Thank you to Game Over Movie Reviews, a constant supporter of this channel. I hope I do not let you down, because this is the challenge I never wished to do, having to pick my favorite films. Even picking my favorite films of genres is difficult. But yes, after this I'll be picking a number of fellow YouTube reviewers that I don't think I've done this challenge yet, but if you have, then don't feel obliged to do it. In fact, don't feel obliged at all, but it's all in good fun, isn't it? So, let's crack on with this. So we're going to start off with an easy one, which is science fiction, and the obvious choice is always the right one in regards to sci-fi, and that is Aliens, the sequel to Alien, which is an absolute masterpiece of a sci-fi action movie. Everything from the characters featured, from Ripley to Newt to Hicks to Hudson to Bishop, everyone in it is fantastic. It raises the stakes on the original and actually gives us characters that we just really enjoy, and we actually feel bad when characters do get killed off. It's a hell of an action movie. It holds up so well, and if you for some reason have never seen Aliens, definitely check it out, because it is by far the best Alien movie, though it is quite close with the original. But as far as sequels goes, this is very much up there. Going from an easy now to a very difficult one, which is horror, my favourite genre. Now this one I'm going to cheat a little bit here, because I can't choose between two. So I'm going to flip a coin for this one. Heads will be option 1, tails will be option B, and I will go through them options in a second. Tails, right, so the coin has decided. Option A was going to be the original Saw, as that was my first movie, but nope, Tails has decided. Dr. Sleep from a couple of years ago is by far my favourite horror movie. It has the responsibility of being a sequel to one of the most iconic horror movies ever made, The Shining. And not only does it manage to tell its own story from within that world and really expand on the lore of The Shining ability and the characters that survived the original Shining, but when it actually does eventually go with the balls to the wall Shining references at the end, at that point the film has very much earned it. I love that the horror aspects of this are on both sides. Usually with horror movies, it's always the protagonists are getting terrified by the antagonist. But in this one, I dare say, sometimes the lead characters are scarier than the antagonists, and Rose the Hat is such a fantastic villain, and Abra Stone is cute, adorable, badass, but also absolutely terrifying, and you don't want to mess with her. If for some reason you have not watched Dr. Sleep, I'd definitely recommend watching it. Watch the director's cut if you can, because even though this film is 2.5 hours long, the director's cut, which makes it around 3 hours long, definitely adds more to it. Even though the original cut is fantastic, the director's cut really pushes it into almost masterpiece territory. I know, cardinal sin, never say masterpiece. Whatever, I just love Dr. Sleep so much, but special mention to Saw, because you never forget your first. Now on to comic book movie. Comic book movies are obviously a lot more popular in this day and age, and for the longest time my favourite comic book movie was actually the original Sam Raimi Spider-Man. Not even Spider-Man 2, it was Spider-Man, but over the last few years, you can guess what took over that reign, and that was Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. This is a perfect comic book movie. The fact that they give us so many different iterations of Spider-Man is absolutely brilliant. With the minimalist screen time possible, they make every character stand out in their own small way. I'm a bit fearful that they're trying a live action route of it with the MCU, which I really hope they don't try and do too hard, because the reason Spider-Verse works is each character stands out in their own art style form. Penny Parker is obviously heavily anime influenced. Nicolas Cage plays Spider Noir, who's this black and white Spider-Man. Peter Porker, Looney Tunes ripoff. By the way, is it Tunes or Tunes? Because I swear I remember it as Tunes. But getting back on topic, Miles Morales, who I've heard wasn't really cared about by the comic people, everyone was all Team Peter Parker. He very much has the torch passed to him within this one. He has probably one of my favorite origin stories in any comic book movie, and it's great seeing a more older Peter Parker who's worn down and a bit depressed from years and years of just saving the city over and over again. It gives us a lot of emotional beats, it makes us laugh, gives us a lot of drama, it gives you every emotion you could possibly want from a comic book movie, and the sequel has a hell of a lot to live up to. Coming up next is the most subjective of all genres, comedy. Now, when I think of comedy, it's basically what makes me laugh, and when I really stop and think about all the comedies that I have seen, because almost every film has an element of comedy to it, I have based these lists on what the letterboxd genres were for each film, and it turns out about half the films I have seen have some element of comedy in there. But for me, the one comedy that makes me laugh hard even after 10 watches is Airplane from 1980. That spoof movie has me cracking up constantly. There is some heavy slapstick humor within it, but there is also some very subtle humor within it. Some standout moments for me, and yes, some bits don't generally hold up in terms of what is acceptable in this day and age, but some of the jokes, such as the woman freaking out and everyone lining up to basically slap the hell out of them, the jive talking nun, the way that Leslie Nielsen breaks down the symptoms of the disease as a pilot is behind him suffering them symptoms in real time, and the just endless woe-is me stories from the lead protagonist, leading to many characters checking out quite literally. It is a laugh a minute, that movie. Right from the get-go, it's just comedy gold again and again and again. Shame the sequel tried to copy everything, but the original holds up so well in terms of just the comedy. It manages to blend both shock comedy and just the dry, witty humour and mashes them together to give us a comedic masterpiece. Next up is action movies, and action movies, you can say there are a lot of films that technically are action movies. Every kung fu movie ever, every war movie ever. Speaking of which, I'm a little annoyed that war was not listed in this list of 10 genres, but I digress. For me, the ultimate action movie is of course Terminator 2. The thing with action movies, and some that stand above others, is with action movies, it's either mindless violence or you give the characters a personality and a story to follow while mixing it in with action. And Terminator 2 does that. It takes the horror elements from the first one, flips it on its head, gives us a strong family dynamic, really builds on Sarah Connor. You start seeing glimpses of Sarah Connor's badassery in the first one towards the end. This one doubles down and stacks up on it, and the emotional ending where you are crying over a literal machine is an absolute masterclass of storytelling that only James Cameron or some other famous directors like Spielberg could really do. Shame the franchise has gone downhill considerably since then, but Terminator 2, everything from Linda Hamilton, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Eddie Furlong, they all do a fantastic performance, and it also gives us one of the most terrifying villains ever in the T-1000, and the way that CGI just holds up nearly 30 years later is nothing short of outstanding. Next up is drama, and it's another very subjective genre. This is a very easy pick for me because there's one film that is 100% a drama that I will always talk about whenever I get the chance, and that is 2013's Rush, starring Daniel Bruhl and Chris Hemsworth, which is based on the real-life rivalry of F1 drivers Niki Lauda and James Hunt, how these contrasting personalities are clashing with each other on the racetrack, giving us some fantastic racing sequences, but it's not all about the racing. There is a lot of drama on track. Neither character is categorically the good guy. Each one of them has their own flaws, and the absolute drama that just builds and builds throughout the film, when the rivalry starts as a bit of light gestures to full-on screaming at each other and deliberately trying to one-up each other with every opportunity, which ultimately almost causes one of them to die, and just the respect they have for each other that is all but encapsulated in one of my favourite scenes ever, which is the starting grid on Mount Fuji, where the Hans Zimmer score comes in as Nikki and Hunt take a glance at each other on the grid, do a little wave, little nod. There's just that little bit of respect there right before the action kicks off, and it's just a fantastic scene that is easily in my top 10 scenes of all time. If you haven't seen Rush, you don't have to be an F1 fan. If you haven't seen it, do go watch it. Romance is a difficult one, like, as you can tell, guy, not really too much of a romance guy, but there are some very good romance films out there. I nearly went with Studio Ghibli's Whisper of the Heart for this one, but my rules was I was going by letterbox genres, and Whisper of the Heart does not fill romance genre, apparently. So I had to look at what did class as a romance film, and there was a toss-up between a couple of films. La La Land was very close, but for me, has to be 2019's A Star Is Born, starring Bradley Cooper and Lady Gaga. Just the simpleness of this relationship and its early beginnings, how you see one person who is up here and the other person being brought from down here, and as you see Lady Gaga slowly overtakes Bradley Cooper's character, their romance is just so believable, to the point where, lest we forget, they performed Shallow at the Oscars, and everyone lost their minds when they gave each other light. It looked for half a second like they were about to kiss, and the internet went to absolute meltdown over it. That's how believable their chemistry was on screen. And this story will make you laugh, it will make you cry. It is an emotionally devastating love story. I just love that it's not all sunshine and rainbows for them. There is a lot of genuine tension and pointless arguments that take place, which is very in tune with real life. I just think it's a fantastic movie in general, and in terms of a romantic film, yeah, this damn, this would be a terrible date movie, to be honest, thinking of the ending, but hey, that would probably be on my list of date movies. Yeah. Now we go into adventure, a very broad genre, but I'm going to cheat and say Letterboxd lists this as a genre, and as fantasy isn't on the list of the 10 genres. Lord of the Rings Return of the King, it is basically the culmination of a very long quest, which is just an adventure of destroying the One Ring. The Ride of the Rohirrim battle is, again, one of my top 10 film scenes of all time. It is filled with everything you want. There's comedic relief. It's a spread out field of characters. The amount of balance they have with scaling, practical and CGI elements. It is the culmination of a very long adventure that is very satisfying. And while many people do complain that the endings go a little bit too long, honestly, I don't mind the extended endings, quite frankly, because you just don't want to see the end of this story. You don't want to leave this world of Middle-earth. So when we are given these extended endings, I didn't mind it. I just didn't want to leave. I want to see how everyone went. I really want to see what happened to Legolas and Gimli and Merry and Pippin afterwards, which is never revealed. Have looked into it since and know how that ends for them. But yeah, if you think of a high fantasy adventure film, Lord of the Rings is the one, and Return of the King is just the culmination of everything you could ever want in a high fantasy setting. Now for animation, I've gone for a very underappreciated studio with a very underappreciated animated film, and that is Kubo and the Two Strings. This film is absolutely fantastic, but pretty much bombed at the box office. It made like 23 million at time of release, which I really don't get. Yes, it's stop motion, but the way they blend stop motion with CG elements, there's this amazing sequence showing a battle on a boat, and it's a very mature animated film as well. Usually with animated films and there's fights, it's all about just knocking the other one out or dancing around that they're going for fatal injuries. This one, it's straight up, they are trying to kill each other, and there are a lot of high stakes involved here. So every time there is a combat in it, you are at the edge of your seat wondering what is going to happen. No one is safe in this film. Kubo is a great protagonist. Charlize Theron does a great job as the monkey, and Matthew McConaughey is a riot as Beetle. We get a couple of Coraline-esque villains that are terrifying. The two sisters are eerily creepy, and the way they play with the lighting and the lore of this world as well. Kubo and the Two Strings. I don't care if you don't like stop motion animation, you are doing yourself a disservice if you don't watch this. It is a barrier you need to get over, like with any foreign language film, you got to get over that subtitle barrier. Give it a watch, it is well worth your time, and it's probably one of my top 5 animated films. And in fact, what am I talking about? This is my favourite animated film of all time, because why else are we doing this video? And finally, we come to the Western genre. As you can expect, I have not seen many Western films. This was a very easy one for me. Django Unchained is my favourite Western film. I love Tarantino. Quite frankly, I was disappointed by Inglourious Basterds. So when Django Unchained came out, I was interested because it was a modern adaptation of the Western genre. My dad showed me a lot of Western films when I was younger, but quite frankly, I can't remember too much about them. But Django Unchained delivered everything you could possibly want. Leo DiCaprio and Christoph Waltz steal the show in this one. But the lead character Django is brilliant. I love the way they balance the Tarantino-esque vulgarity and violence with some half-decent racial commentary, and there's just so many standout moments within this one. It is definitely up there in some of my favourite Tarantino films. Django Unchained is a very good movie indeed, and I highly recommend you check that out, as I don't feel like enough people talk about Django Unchained when they talk about some of Quentin Tarantino's best works. So there you have it. We have my 10 films from 10 genres, and as promised, I am about to challenge a group of YouTubers that I believe haven't done this yet. You are not obliged to do this video, but I would love to see what your picks are. First up, Brett from BamTube TV. He started around the same time I did when it came to YouTube, and he's come leaps and bounds. He has a lot of original content on his channel. Do go check him out. Every person I'm nominating, by the way, links to their channels will be down in the description below, so do be sure to go check them all out. Next one is Trivial Theatre. She gives some great insight into some of the more campy horror movies. Her videos are a lot of fun, and I always look forward to what she puts out there. She's one of the few YouTubers that uses a bit of animation in terms of their presenting, and that just takes a lot of work in general, let alone just talk about films in the depth that she does. Definitely check her out if you haven't had the chance to yet. Rio's Positive POV as well. I challenge you. This guy is a very consistent British YouTuber. Currently, he is going through his entire Blu-ray collection, but I do enjoy seeing his takes on movies, and he's always good for a discussion about movies without throwing the odd insult in there, like many film discussions are apt to do these days. The Movie Oracle as well. Definitely check her out if you haven't. I have a feeling that a lot of people subscribe to me are already subscribed to her, but if you are not, she's got a great personality. Her reviews are really in depth. Like if you're into long form reviews where people are talking about their personal connection to the film as well as the critical aspect, she is definitely a person you should check out. They also every now and then do an amazing stream quiz show, which is a lot of fun to take part of. It just sucks that I'm in the UK, so whenever they go live it's about 2-3 AM for me, so unfortunately I'm not always able to be there, but when I am, it's a lot of fun, and it's a very interactive community that features there. Ren Geekness as well. This guy is fantastic. He is a big supporter of mine, especially in my early days, and he is literally a fountain of film knowledge. I fondly remember discussing video game movies with him on my old podcast. He can just pull any director and any film or any writer out of his ass whenever you ask him without even having to think. He will know that information. He has a great podcast called Geeks at the Round Table with Zach Pope. If you haven't checked them out, do be sure to go do that. And finally, Elsie Screen Talk. Larry has been one of the more consistent uploaders I have seen on this platform, and the way he just always brings new ideas to his platform. One of my favorite series of him right now is him going through the Game of Thrones series with Tyler, who is a noob to Game of Thrones, has never seen them, so it's great showing that he's basically guiding him through this series. And I just love the fact that he is always down to collaborate and interact with people. He's easily one of the most committed in terms of building the film community. I love his ethic, so if you haven't checked him out, do feel free to go do that. Now, like I say, you are all not obliged to do this video, but I am very curious to see what your choices are. If you made it to the end of this video and you like what you see on this channel, consider clicking that like button and subscribing to the channel. It would really help me a lot with the algorithm that seems to be not liking me recently, so that's a lot of fun. Coming up on the channel, I am unsure. I'm going to ask for a bit of help here. Do I go through every Saw movie in preparation for Spiral, the Book of Saw, or do I just talk about how much I love the original Saw in the video essay? Because quite frankly, that's the only one I really want to revisit, and I kind of don't want to go through the pain of reviewing all the movies, but I like doing series as well. So do let me know in the comments below. I might do a poll on Twitter as well. Do feel free to go follow me at Movie Apprentice on Twitter. And until next time, my name is Josh, I have been Movie Apprentice, and I'll see you all in the next video.